about logged in. All right, so thanks for joining the FiscalNote Refresher. We haven't had a webinar in a few weeks, so I'm glad that you guys were all able to join us. I know a number of you have either been on a webinar before. We haven't done kind of a get down to the basics in a while, so this will go over the entire FiscalNote platform and kind of dive into some of our main pillars, so thinking about tracking and collaboration and kind of our GRM functionality. But the agenda for today, I'll tell you a little bit about me, give you a quick update on the company. We'll go over the product, just the product idea, kind of what is the mission, what is it that FiscalNote aims to do for you and your organization. We'll go over basic tracking, collaboration. I've just got a couple icons to go over to familiarize you if you haven't actually been on a training yet, and then we'll just dive right into the platform. If there are any audio problems or if you have a question, feel free to type it into the webinar portal. I can see those as those roll in, and if it fits into the presentation, I'm happy to answer it right away, but I also leave time at the end for question and answer. So again, feel free to type that into the portal. So I'm Amanda, I'm your client education manager. I work really closely with your client success managers to provide extra training, webinars. I also handle kind of our communications, our newsletters. So you probably hear from me a lot. You might even see me pop up in the platform on the little map up in the corner. So there's actually a real person behind that. Yeah, so excited to have you guys here. And as far as an update goes, we actually are having our first industry event on November 29th. It's our summit called Reinvent Influence. I know a number of you have already registered your tickets, but if not, feel free to reach out to me at amanda@fiscalnote.com or your CSM. Would love to get you more information about the event. It's slated to be pretty interesting. Have you there. Okay. So whether you are a veteran on the platform or this is your first webinar and you just got your login this week, Note has kind of built itself as a tracking solution. But right now, legislative and regulatory information, but also allowing you to organize that information for your team information. So whether that means keeping rules filed away in watch lists that are according to your policy priorities, or allowing you to log your actions and log your in that platform. FiscalNote really aims to be a one-stop shop for you to keep all of your information together as well as collaborate with your team. So really of it as a system rather than just a place where the bills happen to live. Okay, so these slides are going to give you kind of a little brief overview. It's kind of a lot of vocabulary that you need to be familiar with before we dive into the platform. So the first piece of our tracking functionality is the discovery alert. You would have worked with your CSM to figure out what we're calling, search queries on your policy priorities that will find all newly introduced legislation and or regulation and push to you in an email. That's what this email here is an example of. Discovery alert is all newly introduced information. So just keep that in mind. It can get a little bit confusing between the two parts of the feature. So first we have discovery alerts. The next piece of the function is the watch list. So FiscalNote will push you information based on your search query, and you are then to slot it into watch lists based on what is important, what is relevant to your team. So that's what a watch list email looks like, and I'll show you exactly where that is in the platform. Again, just want to make that distinction. I think this is kind of it's one of the 6 features, but it's one that can get a little bit tricky. Knowing that your discovery alerts are for new information and watch lists are for what you're tracking, just making sure you understand the difference too will kind of save some confusion in the long run. All right, so that is kind of the tracking piece, and we'll go over that in the platform. a few other kind of icons and vocab that I want you to be familiar with. Our collaboration tools. So right now it's really made up of three different features. We have discussions, which are meant to be kind of a chatter feature, meant to be communication in the platform with your team. So, you're looking at a bill and you need to alert someone on your team to, you've read it, the fact that you've done some analysis on it, you would use discussions. The next piece here is actions. So actions is where we want you to start actually inputting information into the system. So once you've been alerted to, a state rule that is important to you, and you've alerted the team member to, and then you've sent an email, let's say, to a regulator. We want you to actually log that in the system, so you're starting to keep that system of record based on the activity in your team. And the last piece of the collaboration functionality is notes. So here's where we'd ask you to start saving, even more than just bill summaries, because there's actually a feature for that, but more information, more analysis that you're doing, maybe even saving links to news articles or to PDFs that are relevant to that policy area. So really saving information and being able to alert your team members to them, and then on top of that, tracking the activity that you make on all of that information. Okay, so I just threw a lot of kind of vocab, a lot of words, a lot of icons. I'm going to just give you a couple seconds to type in a question if you have any. Get a couple right at the beginning. So let me know using the portal, and I'll just jump right into the demo in just a minute. Awesome. So it doesn't look like we have any questions. So I'm going to switch over the view here so we can actually dive into the platform. All right. So like I said, this is going to be a pretty basic overview because I know a number of you have actually maybe only had one onboarding or one training with your CSM. So I want to make sure we touch on some of the key features, and I'm happy to dive into anything that's kind of more specific. Again, just feel free to kind of ping me through the webinar portal. So this is the home page. You've got the navigation here on the side, and this is where you're going to be able to access a number of the features on the platform, and just know that they all live here. But I also want to point out, for those of you who have multiple content sets, so let's say you have state and federal legislation, or you also have regulatory information, the easy way to access that if you're looking to do kind of searches one-off is to use this bar here. So know that you can click here and kind of toggle between all of the content sets that you have, as well as accessing some of the collaboration features. But we can go into that a bit later. So again, where I wanted to start is really the tracking functionality. The first piece of which actually gets taken care of in your onboarding, in your implementation. So you would know that you'd have worked with FiscalNote to come up with policy areas. What are the issues that your organization is dealing with and wants to track over the session? You'd have then created search queries with your CSM and with our implementation team. I know some of you have worked with Mike or Jonathan to really come up with queries that are going to span your policy areas. So this is what a discovery alert looks like. You're given the results of your search query that lives here. You can see this that we're tracking over, and the results of the newly introduced legislation and or regulatory information, if that's what you're looking over, right here in the middle pane. So the workflow here really is to get the email that I showed you in the presentation. You would get that email either daily, every 4 hours even, on a weekly basis, to receive those alerts and then come into using that alert by clicking into that email and coming to your discovery alert. So here I'll actually show you how you would create one, though I know your CSM might prefer you to work with them to do this at least in the beginning to make sure that you're catching all the information that you need. But it's pretty simple. You would name the discovery alert, name whatever policy area you're looking at, insert that search query or insert those keywords. It might be good to kind of play around with it, so play around with some of the search term logic based on what your implementation team was able to do. You would select the legislatures that you want to search over, and then here's where you decide your preferences. So how often do you want to be alerted? Here's where you'd go through and select that. So again, I've received my email this morning. I'm going through my accountability bills, and I want to see which ones actually matter to me. So here's a quick trick that sometimes people don't actually know about. So clicking anywhere in the bill card actually pulls up this third panel, kind of a truncated view of the bill. We imagine that it might be easy to spend some time in your discovery alerts going through bills this way. As opposed to opening up the bill, the entire bill page, you would bring up this truncated view and look at the key phrases found. So this is actually a new feature that was released within the last 2 weeks. We're actually going to show you where in the bill text we picked up on the keywords that you've inputted into the query. So that, it was a little bit more difficult before because we would show you that we caught this bill or caught this regulation, but we weren't showing you why. Now we'll show you the sentence, and you can then go into the bill text by scrolling down, finding the bill version, opening it, and now you can search for that. You can actually search for that sentence where we found your keyword. So again, this is a truncated view. You've got basic information. This bill summary here is what I mentioned earlier. A number of our clients are actually looking at bills, deciding that something is relevant, but maybe the title isn't actually indicative of why it's important, or doesn't actually tell you what you need to know, what your team needs to know about the bill. Excuse me. So we allow you to include your own bill summary that is then available to the entire organization based on what's important. So you can use this to pull out certain key phrases, to pull out certain even sections of the bill that are sponsors. Here, quickly to note, anywhere you see a legislator's name, it's actually linked to that legislator's page. So we can look at that a little bit later if people are interested. So again, using this view, this kind of 3-panel view, review the bills that we caught in your discovery alert. Now, right now, this might not be kind of a useful workflow. There's not a lot happening, although some pre-files are set up. Is that if you are, if one of your main responsibilities is tracking, is really keeping kind of your finger on the pulse for your organization, you'll want a lot of time here. Oh, I'm just checking if there was a question. Oh, all right. You want to spend a lot of time here. So then what do you found a bill that's important. You've looked at it in the base, you've looked at the basic information, you've maybe entered a bill summary. Now you say, I want to be alerted on this bill and the movement of this bill through its life cycle. That's where a watch list comes in. So anywhere in the platform that you see this eye icon, this means watch list. As I almost think of it as like a filing cabinet. It's where I'm putting all the bills that are important to me so that later on I can go back and kind of see the status. You scroll over the eye icon and slot it into a watch list. Again, your CSM would work with you to come up with what is the best organization of your watch list. Are they named by potentially your team members? Are they named by regions? This is something that we want to make sure kind of aligns with your discovery alerts so that it's kind of an easy one-to-one. So you come here and I'd say, okay, this goes into my priority education folder. Again, getting pretty nitty-gritty, you'll see here that there's a check mark over the eye. When you come to your discovery alert, you might be scrolling down and maybe there were bills that came in between the last time you checked the system. If an eye icon doesn't have a check mark, that means you haven't added it to a watch list. So just want to make sure you know that distinction. Secondarily, you'll see that Here, the bill card, the text is bold. This means that it hasn't actually been viewed, whereas this card is not bold anymore because we've clicked in to see the truncated view. So you'll see now that I click, it is no longer bold, and that means that I've viewed the information here. All right, so if we hop then over to your watch list, I've gone through, I've decided what's important, I go to my watch list. Education looked at, we'll see all the bills that I've decided are relevant for this issue area. You'll see here is that bill. So on this page, and again, we've got this 3-panel view, another place where you can spend a lot of time kind of looking at lists, but also doing analysis, kind of digging deeper into the information. So again, clicking anywhere on the card, you'll pull this up here. But on the card itself, there are a number of things to note. Priority inputs that we want you to start to indicate, whether this is a high priority bill, a low priority bill, and then maybe your organization's position on it, if that's something you do track. I know some of our more nonprofit clients aren't actually taking positions, that it's more about just looking at the policy landscape. So to the best of, I guess, your team's use, again, something that your CSM will be able to go over with you. Again, on the bill card, last act. So mention on the truncated view is the ability, or on the bill page, is the ability to see the timeline. So we'll actually jump into a bill page so I can show you what that means. So we'll let this load here. Right, so this is a bill page, and what you'll notice is I clicked the actual bill number or the regulation number or name. That's how you get to the entire bill page. You'll see a timeline here that will show you from introduction what's happening on this piece of legislation. So if we go back to that card, the date, and then hovering over what we call the tooltip, this little circle here, will show you what that last action is. I point this out because it seems kind of minute, but when you're in the thick of the session and you're tracking bills every day and you need to know what the last action was, it might not be timely to go to each individual. So we built this so that you can quickly know, okay, what was the last thing that happened on this bill? Just want you to know that that's an option. So here are all the bills that I'm tracking, and as I mentioned in the slide deck, you will also have received, you will be receiving emails that look similar to the Discovery Alert email based on your preferences. So you'll have created your watch lists, you've decided what you want to be notified on, here for regulatory, and you will decide how often, right? So here are the preferences again. You know, I think most of our clients probably go with daily, especially during the sessions. They're seeing the movement over time. A lot of people are forwarding those emails to colleagues, whether they have FiscalNote or not, just to kind of give updates. They end up being a really useful tool that allow you outside of the platform to really keep an eye on things. And then when you get back to your desk, you're back from traveling, you're able to dig in, really track your activity on your policy areas. All right. So if I click into the bill card here, I just want us to go to that bill page again so I can give you the lay of the land. You'll see the basic information that we mentioned. Documents and similar bills, so all of the bills and then amendments and any additions to the bill text will live here, and again, we'll allow you to open that up. Votes that happen on the bill will live here, and we'll actually give you a list, the breakdown of where each representative fell. You'll be able to export that list. We'll show you a whip board, and it looks like our forecasts are still being calculated for this bill. It was just introduced last week, so we're still running the calculations on that. But basically, the virtual whip board is going to show you where FiscalNote is predicting legislators will vote. And so this is the first place. We've talked about tracking. We've kind of gone over that workflow. This is really the first place where the analytics come in, where the analysis comes in. So FiscalNote is using information about the text of the bill, as well as about the representatives in each chamber, to predict how likely it is that a legislator will vote on this particular bill. If I click configure here, you'll see a whipboard that you can actually manipulate. One, we give you our prediction, but you can use your kind of expertise, your insight into these chambers and with your relationship, the legislator would fall. More information will provide an outlook. So as I mentioned, the calculations are still being formed, but here's where FiscalNote will predict what we think is going to happen on this piece of legislation and give you the reasons why. So again, we're looking at hundreds of data points. We're looking at what these legislators have done in the past, what bills they've passed themselves, what bills they tend to vote on, and how they vote. How one legislator votes impacts the vote of another. So again, looking at all of that information, we're predicting the likelihood of passing. And then again, the timeline. So that's the basic information and analysis of a bill. The second piece kind of the FiscalNote workflow, collaboration. So it's putting information, putting that together with collaboration on your team to really manage all the relationships you have with legislators, with rule makers, and so on. So if we scroll to the bottom of a bill page, and really you're scrolling to the bottom of any of our entity pages, so a legislator, a rule, a committee, you're able to input information on all of these things. So we actually get a nice view of all three collaboration tools right here at the bottom of the bill page. I'll start with discussion since that's what we talked about first. If I'm on this Illinois House resolution, I can see any discussions that are made on this bill. So it doesn't look like anything has ever been said. But one really neat thing is I could say at Wendy, take a look at this bill. Whatever the communication is that you might be doing, maybe if you were to pick up someone sitting kind of across the office, now you can start to log that in the system. Is calling them on a particular actions happening in your organization. So again, worry about switching anything, it will automatically change to the discussion on that bill or legislator and so on. The next few pieces here are actions. So as we mentioned, you are making phone calls, sending emails, going to committee hearings, going to conferences all the time. And we know that you're also keeping track of a lot of information as you do it. Why not marry the two, and why not actually keep track of all of that activity as it pertains to the information? So let's say a committee hearing on behalf of this House resolution. I can put the start and end time of the committee. I can put, it automatically populates with your name, but if you have teammates that are attending, you can also tag them. And then you can also link to different entities. Other bill matters to, or that this is relevant to, you can actually look that up here, or maybe it's actually relevant to a different committee, committee here. So it's really trying to build out this network of relationships, the relationships between bills and committees and legislators and your team and the effort that your team is putting in. Building that out so that you can start managing it as opposed to having emails in your inbox, Word docs on your desktop, and then your phone that you actually called. I think it's really nice to imagine a place that you could come and see all the activity that your team is doing in one place. You can then save a summary here, and I'll actually save some of the details on kind of hashtags and the way that we do tagging in the system. But for example, hashtag committee hearing, or rather committee. This would be something here that when I save this hashtag, it's something that my team can come back and use in the future and start to see, based on the hashtags that you use, what's happening. This is another place where I know client success managers are trying to build out what we're calling executive business rules. So we don't want everyone kind of tagging their information and inputting actions and notes kind of haphazardly. We want you to have a system that says, here are the set of hashtags, here are the set of sub issues that my team cares about, and the entire team will use that set of hashtags across the platform. So again, that's a little bit more detailed than we'll go in today in the refresher, but happy to take questions on it afterwards. The last piece here, and actually just to show you, created the action, it'll populate at the bottom of the page. So you putting actions on a bill and your teammate coming to that bill, they'll see it and they're actually able to add actions as well. So you see the running list of not just your effort, but the effort of your team on particular pieces of information. You'll see that this hashtag is hyperlinked here. The last piece is our notes. So a distinction to be made here, you can make private notes, so you can come into the system, read a bill text, figure out kind of the line, maybe the line-by-line items that really matter to you, pull those out and save them to say, okay, I need to come back to this later. One thing that we've seen is people making notes, private notes, and then making an action that says, come back for analysis on this or on this rule. So marrying all of the features together to say, okay, doing analysis, but also taking action, and then reminding myself to come back to this piece of information. The second piece is actually taking organization-wide notes. So this is information that you want shared across the platform. Again, instead of taking notes on a Word doc and then attaching the PDF of the text and sending all that in an email, you're now system and can export that afterwards. So that's an overview of the tools themselves. What I want to take you to is actually the actions aggregate view. Here's where you'll see all the actions being taken. So as we mentioned before, this is not just meant to be a place where you do research on bills, maybe you get a few emails. It's really meant to start to the work that you're doing. So again, in the sessions, these pages are going to get to look a little bit crazy. There are going to be emails being sent, hearings attended, fly-ins even, testimony. This is where you can really start to see what's going on in your team. I know a lot of kind of directors and executive levels are using this to view the effort and start to find trends, right? So to say, how many emails did it take to actually get a meeting, and then how many meetings did we attend, and then what actually happened on that bill. You can start to build a strategy based on the you've had using different tactics. So we're actually really open to hearing any suggestions that you have on the type of actions that we're allowing you to save, a set number, but we're always interested in hearing what are other things, what are other activities that your team is partaking in. We can help you track on the system. So you'll see here the summary, you'll see all of these hashtags, and like I mentioned earlier, by clicking the hashtag, you'll actually see all of the actions that have to do with that hashtag. So again, if you have, let's say, 5 policy areas, but then you have a number of subcategories, using hashtags to keep track of those subcategories means that you can view your issues kind of in a more organized way. And the last piece here is actually the action side. This was something that we'd heard requests for, to see what are the top linked items. So what are the top issues or legislators that my team is dealing with? What are the top, so again, thinking about building your kind of government relations strategy based on what's successful. If you see that month by month you have a lot of phone calls being made, but you're not really seeing any movement on the bills that you either want to pass or the bills that you want to stop from passing, maybe it means that you need to switch that up. Maybe there should be kind of a different tactic taken. So this you can actually download as an image and input it into any reporting that you're doing up to your boss, or just kind of on a weekly basis with the rest of your team. So that's an overview of collaboration. I do a lot at you, so I'm going to give just a minute for anyone to ask any questions. Happy to dive deeper into the tracking portion or creation and how those two things tie together. So I'm going to put myself on mute, but let me know if you have any questions. Awesome. So we actually got a quick question in here about exporting information or reporting on information. It was a good question. Sorry that I kind of skipped over that. There's a lot of ability to export from the system. The most common place, and this is going to be this way for the next few weeks. We're actually revamping exporting and reports in the system coming up here in the next month or so. So actually, I'll show you how, but there will probably be another webinar on how to do that using the new system. Let's say we come to a watch list, and you've been tracking bills over the session, or let's say just over the week, and you want to export those bills and all the work you've done. It's as easy as selecting the checkboxes here, or using this drop-down button to say select all on current page, and then clicking the export button here in the middle pane. You can title it whatever you'd like, maybe weekly report. Excel. The PDF, which I'll export, is actually a very nice and clean report that you can attach in an email, attach in a newsletter. You can even put it in, link to it in a PowerPoint. But the Excel and CSV reports are where we see clients exporting and then continuing their information in FiscalNote. You can export it in a CSV and then continue your analysis doing kind of trend work, etc. You can use this to decide what information you'd like to include. I know that some people don't want to include the actions because all you're doing is really reporting on the data, reporting on the bills and the rules. I'll not include actions, but maybe you want to include the notes, you want to include the analysis that you're doing. Quickly, we'll get kind of a downloadable link, but it'll also just download into your downloads the report. And so you'll see it'll show you how many bills, and then again it's going to show you that basic information that we talked about that you've put into the system on that bill. One thing to note here is you can share this with anyone even if they don't have FiscalNote. By clicking the bill number, it'll actually take you to a shareable bill page. So again, the person doesn't have to have FiscalNote in order to access this page. Really nice if you're sending this to maybe another department or across a wider swath of your company or your organization. People don't have to have a login in order to see all of this information. They'll see voting information, the timeline, any notes you've taken, so that automatically gets loaded on the report. So that is kind of the main place that people are exporting. I'm happy to take any reporting questions offline because there are just a number of other places, and I'm happy to answer those either over email or call. Awesome. So it doesn't look like we had any other questions. I'll leave it open just for a couple more seconds to see if anything rolls in, and if not, happy to give you back, a couple minutes of your day. Great. Well, the last part here is just kind of showing you how you can access your help desk. There's a lot of information here that we provide, so when you stumble upon something that you don't know about or that you want to know more about, you can directly speak with us, leave us a message, send a ticket. It actually comes directly to me by clicking question mark and talk to us, and it'll ask you to fill out this little form here. Or you can click into the Help Center, and this is going to show you recordings here of different webinars, updates and releases that we've made, blog posts explaining our analytics, and then really just how-tos. How do you use the collaboration tools in more depth? How do you use the tracking features? So this is a nice place to kind of do some self-training. If you don't want to, an entire training, you can come here, kind of get your questions answered, and then ask questions further. So again, that is accessible using the question mark here. Other than that, that is the FiscalNote refresher. That's kind of the 101. Upcoming, we have a webinar coming up on mobile and how to integrate your use of desktop FiscalNote and FiscalNote mobile on Apple products. We'll also do a webinar on mailing lists and outreach. So want to make sure that you are set on those features coming up in the new session. So definitely want to sign up for that one. I think that's in the second week of December. So thank you. Hope that was helpful. Again, happy to answer questions at support@fiscalnote.com. Thanks so much.